much tourism is considered to be excessive? What happens when the areas that we enjoy visiting become filled to capacity, causing locals to leave and putting a strain on the available resources? Will cities be able to strike a balance between the growing discontent of inhabitants and the economic benefits? In 2024, the tourist industry on a worldwide scale has reached heights that have never been seen before, hence establishing new benchmarks for international travel. Today, more individuals than ever before are getting ready to embark on a journey, eager to discover well-known landmarks, unwind on untouched beaches, and immerse themselves in the cultures of other countries. Even more impressive is the fact that this spike in travel has eclipsed the previous peak of 2019, which was 1.76 billion trips, with half of those journeys belonging to Europe. On the other hand, the pandemic brought an end to tourism in the years 2020 and 2021, resulting in a significant drop in the number of yearly trips to just 500 million. Following the removal of limitations, tourism began to recover, starting at a sluggish rate but eventually picking up speed tremendously. By the year 2024, international travel had fully rebounded, and between April and June of that same year, the number of tourists from around the world surpassed the level seen in 2019. This has never been more apparent than in Southern Europe, where cities such as Barcelona, Rome, Athens, and Venice have been unable to properly accommodate the vast number of tourists that have visited their respective locations. It is becoming more and more obvious that this growth has undesirable consequences. In Barcelona, for instance, the number of tourists has increased by 20% in comparison to the levels that existed before the outbreak. Historic areas have been changed into tourist destinations that are dominated by souvenir shops and short-term rental flats. Streets are crowded, local infrastructure is under enormous strain, and historic neighborhoods have all been transformed into tourist hotspots. The level of frustration among the people has reached a boiling point, which has led to widespread demonstrations. Demonstrators in Barcelona have gone to the extreme of dousing tourists with water in order to vent their discontent as a form of protest. Curious to find out all the answers? Stick with us until the end. There are some captivating insights and surprises waiting just for you. Don't miss out on the journey. The governments have responded by enacting stringent laws with the intention of reducing the amount of excessive tourists. Currently, the number of tourists to Santorini is limited to 8,000 per day, whereas the Acropolis in Athens is restricted to a maximum of 20,000 per day. There is a quota on the number of tourists that can visit Amsterdam each year, which is set at 20 million, and the city has also placed restrictions on the entry of cruise ships. Day trippers in Venice are now required to pay an entry charge of €5 per visitor, while tourists in Portofino are subject to fines of up to €270 for staying at popular selfie areas for an excessive amount of time. As a further measure to reduce the likelihood of congestion in particular regions, Barcelona has even gone to the extraordinary length of removing a significant bus route from Google Maps. In 2023, it is anticipated that worldwide tourism generated a total of $3.3 trillion, which contributed to 3% of the world's gross domestic product, 6% of global trade, and employed up to 10% of the workforce across the globe. As a primary economic engine, tourism is extremely important to a great number of countries. To give just one example, the whole light rail transit system in Barcelona is funded by the cash generated from tourists. The spending of tourists is essential to the success of cultural institutions, historical sites, and museums all over the world. This helps to alleviate the strain that is placed on government resources. Tourism has been an essential source of revenue for many economies that are experiencing difficulties. Southern Europe, which is more dependent on tourism than Northern Europe, has experienced higher economic growth since the outbreak. While Barcelona reimagined itself as a tourist destination following the 1992 Olympics, Iceland was able to recover from the financial crisis that occurred in 2008, thanks to the significant increase in tourism that the country experienced. On the other hand, the problem of over-tourism is becoming more severe, particularly due to the fact that the majority of tourist activity is increasingly focused in a small number of specific locations. Travellers have been encouraged to swarm to the same renowned areas as a result of the rise of social media, which has led to extreme overcrowding in places such as Rome, Paris, and Barcelona. To make matters even more difficult, travellers visiting today typically take shorter vacations than they did in the past. While the average length of stay for tourists in Costa Rica is 14 days, the average length of stay for tourists in Armenia is 11 days. However, the typical duration of a trip in Greece is only 4 days, while in Spain it is 3 days, and in France it is only 2 days. In addition, the disruption of housing markets that has occurred as a result of the development of short-term rentals is another key worry. When travellers were more prevalent in the past, they largely stayed in hotels, leaving residential housing unoccupied. Nevertheless, thanks to websites like Airbnb, a great number of flats that were formerly occupied by locals are now devoted to vacation rentals. This has the effect of limiting the supply of property and driving up prices. Short-term rentals currently account for 7.6% of all housing in Europe, representing a significant increase from the previous year, 2018. In Barcelona, short-term rentals make up less than 5% of the city's housing stock. However, in regions like Girona and Mallorca, the percentage of short-term rentals is significantly greater, often topping 20 to 30%. Instead than spreading visitors, the majority of efforts to combat over-tourism have concentrated on lowering the number of tourists who visit a particular location. The construction of new hotels has been subject to stringent controls, in addition to the introduction of tourist levies and the restriction of short-term rentals. While it is possible that these actions could alleviate some of the pressure, there is also a possibility that they will affect the economies of the local communities. The reality is that tourism is beneficial not only to wealthy investors, but also to regular people, who, as a result of tourism spending, enjoy greater pay and improved public services. On the other hand, cultural attractions, such as Paris, have been mostly unscathed by similar tax hikes. This is because tourists are frequently ready to pay more for an experience that they will never forget. As tourism around the world continues to expand, towns and countries need to figure out how to strike a balance between the economic rewards and the quality of life for the people who live there. Although there are certain locations, such as Barcelona, who are advocating for a drop in tourism, this strategy has the potential to be detrimental to local companies and jobs if it is not controlled wisely. With 2024 representing a new peak in worldwide travel, the true issue lies in finding a method to embrace mass tourism without damaging the very locations that make people want to visit in the first place. This is the actual challenge. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel.